Welcome all. My name is Earl Waller, and I wanted to introduce you guys to, just a basic one-on-one understanding of what solar is. Had a lot of people that constantly write me messages in my inbox regarding, just a little bit more information on what solar is and what it actually means to go solar. Just in a brief synopsis, to answer any and all questions that you may have when you're deciding on whether or not you do want to go solar or you don't. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you my presentation of what is solar. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint. We're going to hop right into it. So screen share, desktop. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hop right into slide number 1. And please excuse the bottom of the screen. You can actually see I am transcribing it for, accessibility. To go solar in today's day and time, or just in general. So hopping into the first slide here, the basic understanding of what is solar. So solar is a power which is produced by collecting sunlight and converting it into electricity. This is done by using solar panels, which are large flat panels made up of many individual solar cells. It is often used in remote locations, although it is becoming more popular in urban areas as well. Now, one thing I really want to drive home here is ValuSolar Plus is a company that specializes in residential solar. As you can see right there on the right-hand side, our team works constantly, daily, to position the right solars on your home in such a way that you're able to bank enough electricity to create a sustainable life. But just as a basis, understanding of what solar is, basically it's using the sunlight to generate electricity through these panels that contain individual solar cells. So basically, you could think about it in a nutshell, these panels that are going on your roof are actually collecting the sun's energy and baking electricity for you to utilize in your home. So you don't necessarily have to worry about, grid being grid reliable, which we're going to discuss here shortly in a later slide. You have your on and your off grid energy source, but for the sake of just the basics of what we're speaking about right now, solar is basically taking the sun's energy and converting it into taking the sun's sunlight and converting it to energy for your home or your dwelling. So kind of hopping right into the second slide here. Um, There are 4 general elements for making a solar power system, and we're going to just explore all 4 of those in this brief PowerPoint. First, we're going to start by saying the solar panel itself, which is what we just explained on the first slide. Secondly, it's followed by the charge controller, which we're also going to discuss briefly. And then you have an inverter. And then lastly, we're going to have our battery. Now, these are all elements, general elements for making a solar power system come together. So what we're going to discuss in the next few slides are how each one of these elements contribute to an effective and an efficient solar system. Let's work here. Okay, starting with solar panels. Solar panels refers to a panel designed to absorb the sun's rays as a source of energy for generating electricity or heating. So again, going back to what we discussed before, the panels take the light from the sun and convert it into energy that's banked for you to use in your dwelling or your residential property. A solar panel is a module. A solar panel or module is a series of interconnected silicon gels joined together to form a circuit. In greater numbers, the amount of power produced by these interconnected cells can be increased and used as an electricity production system. Now, guys, this is really powerful here. Make sure that you're understanding we're literally taking the energy from the sun, and converting it into electricity for your home, or heating system for your home. So you can kind of see, talk about reliability. The sun isn't going anywhere, but as many of you already know, these electricity rates will continue to increase. They will continue to incline, day in and day out, year over year. So being able to take advantage of, the sunlight early on, you can really save yourself a ton of money when you're looking at it over the long term, or even the monthly aspect of it. But just as element number one, solar panels absorb sunlight from the heat and sunlight from the sun, and it converts that rather into energy and electricity that can be used for your residential home or dwelling. Then kind of hopping over to the next one, we have our charge controller. Now, a charge controller is for solar power system. Charge controller for a solar power system is an electronic device which regulates the voltage for charging battery, which comes from the solar panel. If the production of voltage, excuse me, if the production of voltage will high by the solar, then a charge controller regulates the charge of the batteries, preventing any overcharging. If a solar power system doesn't have any battery, then there will not be a need for any charge controller. So basically, in a nutshell, what this basically states is that if your solar panels actually have a battery installed in them, the charge controller is what allows that battery to charge efficiently, without providing any overcharging or wasting the use of the electricity that the sun is generating onto your panels. If you have a panel that does not run or operate off of any kind of battery, just primarily solely on the sunlight, then obviously a charge controller would not be needed. So this is another, key element in ensuring an efficient and energy efficient, rather, solar system installation. Some panels require batteries. Some panels you can use completely without the battery, just rely heavily on the sunlight, in which we can discuss that in another video at a later date. But for the basis of this presentation, charge controller is basically the control tower for understanding how much charge a panel has, not allowing it to overcharge, rather to charge very efficiently. So that's gonna be your charge controller element. And then this is going to lead us to our inverter. An inverter is an electronic device which converts direct current, or DC current, into alternating current, AC current. That's pretty self-explanatory, in a sense where it basically is an electronic device that takes the direct current from the sun, or from, it converts it into alternating current. So the current that you're able to use inside of your home, inside of your residence, it basically takes that direct current and converts it into efficient energy that can be used in your residence. So you guys can kind of see it's really, you have your solar panel, you have your charge controller, you have your inverter. These are all key elements to ensuring that the energy that you're getting in your home is efficient, and that it's properly, running to save you the most amount of money necessary to bank enough electricity that you need to create sustainability for your home. So that's going to be, I want to say the third element, the inverter, which takes us directly, I'm sorry, that was the fourth element, the inverter. So kind of tying all of those together, solar power system. A solar power system is an electrical system which produces electricity by using of solar power, an ideal solar power system. So in an ideal solar power system, you're going to see right here, starting energy from the sun. You have energy from the sun, which makes direct contact with the solar panel itself, which then, as you can see, has an electric current that goes directly to the charge controller. You remember that thing that kind of regulates the battery so that doesn't let it overcharge but charge efficiently. And that takes that energy from the charge controller and puts it directly into the battery itself, which then goes from the battery into your inverter, which takes it from that DC to that AC. And then from the converter, you're using it in your home space. So it's a seamless process, all starting from the sun, not necessarily relying directly on the grid aspect of things, although having the grid there is can be really reliable in a sense. But it all starts from the sun, kind of going back through what you have your sun, which makes direct contact with your solar panel, which then the electrical current goes into the charge controller, which is responsible for efficiency in charging that doesn't allow the battery to overcharge. Takes that energy that efficient energy or electrical current that it has and moves it directly into the battery, which then the battery stores it in, transfers it directly into your inverter, which takes the direct current into AC current, alternate current, and then that heats your home. Or powers your home with electricity. So really seamless process, really ideal. You can kind of see where the savings start to begin because we're really relying on the sun. And we all know the sun's been here for many years and will stay here for many more to come. So that's the solar system as a whole. And just kind of moving on to the next slide. We're going to discuss a little bit deeper into the classification of a solar power system. There are 3 kinds of solar power systems. Like I said at the beginning in the first slide, you have your on-grid solar power system, you have your off-grid solar power system, and then you have what's called your combined solar power system. Now, on the next few slides, we're going to discuss these 3, and I'm also going to give you an example or 2 of how each one of these may work hand in hand with creating electricity towards your residence or dwelling. First off, you're going to have your on-grid solar system. Now, for those of you who have reached out to me, you've often asked me, what is the difference between the on-grid, off-grid, what is grid, things like that. So starting from left to right, on-grid, you can kind of see here in the depiction, you have your electrical towers that you see, when you're driving down the road, which feeds energy into your your electric, your what's called AC main supply. You can kind of see your electricity pole. I'm drawing blanks, guys, forgive me. So you're basically, when you're on the grid, you're basically taking electricity from the electrical towers that you see on the far left, translating that energy into the electric poles that you see, which then directly correlates into your solar panels, and it pretty much goes through the same process that we discussed prior when converting electricity and energy for your home. But if you guys notice at the very top, you can kind of see the sun is still there. The sun is still staying consistent with generating the electricity and the energy necessary to maintain sustainability for your home. So being on the grid just basically means that you're attached to the electrical tower in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And you're not necessarily relying only on the necessity of having the sun to, create your electricity. You're still connected to the grid. And that's basically what that means, where you're getting your energy source from. So that's in a nutshell what on-grid is, the electricity tower feeding into the electrical power pole, which all still generates to some degree, electricity and energy for your home to create a sustainable way of life. And then we have what we call our off-grid. Now the off-grid, as you'll notice in the depiction, there really is no electricity tower. You literally take direct sunlight, which hits your panel, that basically goes from a DC current all the way to, it makes its way to an AC current, which is ultimately what fuels the energy and the electricity and the heat that goes into your home. So we're literally relying only on the sun's rays and heat to generate electricity, hence off the grid. We're not necessarily attached to a electrical tower, the same towers you see driving down the street, they're no longer there. We're literally directly relying on the sun's energy to fuel the energy and electricity that goes into our home. And it's the same process. Sun, panel, panel turns into this DC current, which basically goes into a battery if you have one. And then which ultimately goes into the charge controller, leading to the inverter, the AC, and then the electricity in your home. So the difference, major differences that you want to take away from this is on the grid means you're using the electrical tower that you pass by when you're driving down the road. Off the grid, you're solely relying on the sun's heat and to generate your electricity and your energy. And on the right hand side, you can kind of see here things that rely directly on off grid will be solar planes, RVs, these that have that may not necessarily be in direct contact with the electrical tower, because for instance, once you get on those planes, you're pretty much in a different atmosphere and you really don't have the electrical tower to even pull a signal from. So your only source of energy would be the sun. Same concept with the RVs. People typically travel in RVs, so they're not always in locations where they can have access to electrical towers. So they will also rely heavily on the use of the sun. So kind of hop into the next one. And then we have what's called a combined solar power system. Now this system in a nutshell is using both. Some people prefer this because they, for the reliability factor, to use the sun and the electrical tower for energy that it takes to, really power their home, create electricity for their home. I'm just kind of going through the steps you can see here. Step number one, solar power converts sunlight to DC current, and which takes us to number two, the inverter converts electricity from DC to AC, like we just explained before. So you have your solar panels collecting the sun's energy and turning it into DC current. From that DC current, you're going to get your AC current through the inverter. And then that AC current takes electricity your home requires and fuels your home and gives you the heat, gives you the electricity, gives you the energy that you need to sustain life or even bank into the panels themselves. And then the fourth one is extra electricity credited on the grid. So it's an extra storage electricity spot as a secondary, if you will, to in an event where, let's say, the sun doesn't provide enough bank electricity for you to continue to sustain a way of living. So that's in a nutshell, the combined solar power system that many people, may have been reaching out to me asking me, what is it exactly? How does it work? What is solar? What is meant by going solar? What is on the grid? What is off the grid? What are inverters? Things like that. In a nutshell, this is pretty much, in a brief synopsis of how things work in regards to solar. So for anyone, if you had any questions about anything, or if there's anything that I said in this presentation that may not have clicked, just reach out to me. We can get something one-on-one set up so I can explain it to you in greater detail. But that's that more or less. And we've pretty much reached the end of our presentation. And I just want to say, it's really been great to have the opportunity to kind of share that with you, especially because so many people have this misconception or misunderstanding of what solar is and how it can really, benefit their lifestyle, their home, and more importantly, save them money to be used elsewhere. So that in a nutshell is pretty much what solar energy is and what is meant by going solar. I really hope that during this brief presentation, you really took something away to better understand what it is and what it means to go solar and how solar works, from the sunlight, to the conversion to the output of energy or electricity in your home. It's been a pleasure kind of explaining this to you guys. Again, my name is Earl Waller, and I do own ValuSolar Plus, where we help homeowners save money and generate clean electricity by the means of going solar. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Please follow me on all social media platforms, ValuSolar Plus on Facebook, ValuSolar Plus on Instagram. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, obviously hit the subscribe button, and I would greatly appreciate that. In the meantime, if you have any questions about anything as it pertains to going solar and how solar works, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. This has been a great experience, and I'm glad that you guys tuned in and watched this brief presentation. Any questions, let me know. Again, it's been a pleasure. My name's Earl Waller, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Stay safe. Thank you, guys.